Welcome to the Borgen Podcast, the only English language show about fictional Danish politics. On our show, we explore the people, events, and parties that make up the fictional Danish parliament on Borgen. I'm one of your hosts, Amy, coming to you from Istanbul, Turkey, and I am, as always, joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Chantal, who broadcasts from her room with a fabulous view in Toronto, Canada. So, welcome back. It's been a minute.
It's been a while, Amy. It's been a while.
Yep.
How are you?
Very good. It's really hot here as usual. It's hot and humid in Istanbul. It's August, so it's the high heat of summer. But we are starting to have some days where the humidity abates a little bit, and it's quite nice. And I understand why people in Spain have siesta time, and I wish we did that here.
Well, in Toronto, it's the same thing. Terribly
Yeah.
hot weather, and yeah, I hope it's coming to an end soon.
I think my cat's melted.
You got to fill up the water bowl.
Yeah, I've got two out. They're fine. They love it. They think it's great. Oh, it's really hot. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
You can lie around even more.
So we are here to talk about a bonus episode. And
Yes.
we are going to be talking about Sidse Babett Knudsen's short film called WOACA, which stands for Women of a Certain Age. And yeah, we'd like to say a big thank you to all the new followers of our Instagram and Twitter accounts. Thank you for all the messages that people send to us and engage with us on our posts, or to the people that have written in to us. And I will reference your names during the recording that have come forward with information that we are going to use in this episode. Actually, we just want to say we haven't stopped thinking about our podcast, and finally we're here and we're back to record this episode for you. So Amy, for the new listeners joining us, do you want to talk about what the bonus episodes are in our podcast? What do we do in them?
Sure. Bonus episodes. I mean, we just kind of talk about things that are off the Borgen track, and maybe Borgen adjacent sometimes. So, like, for example, we'll be talking about Sidse Babett. Oh my God, I can't even pronounce her name anymore. Sidse Babett Knudsen's short film and a few other films that she's doing because she's on the scene making new work.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about thematic things that are related to something that came up in Borgen, or different
We do character
topics.
studies.
We do character studies, yeah, different things that are kind of, timely or going on in parallel in the real world or relating to our lives a little bit. And that's what our bonus episodes are for, and they're more kind of a looser format. We chat a lot, so get ready for that.
Yes.
You can go now if you don't want to listen to us chat. But I would stay if I were you.
Yes, because we have a lot of good information. So as Amy said, Sidse Babett Knudsen has released a few pieces of work since we've last recorded, actually. Some films that have come out last year in 2023 and also this year in 24. So let's get down to it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is called Club Zero. And it came out in 2023. It's from Austria and the UK. It stars Mia Wasikowska, Sidse Babett Knudsen, Mathieu Demi, and Elsa Zilberstein. So it's an internationally co-produced dark comedy thriller film, directed and produced by Jessica Hausner. It's about a teacher who manipulates her students into joining her cult of extreme nutrition and ultimately withdrawing completely from the influence of their parents. So
Ooh.
I took the summary from Mubi, M-U-B-I, which is an excellent movie platform. Amy, I know you're a member there. I used to be a member there. For people that like more artistic film, more international film, we highly recommend it. Mubi lists this film as being shown in 28 film fests, including the Cannes Film Festival, where it was selected to compete for the Palme d'Or in 2023.
Yep.
So,
and yeah, Mubi is a great site for international films, and I think it was established by a Turkish guy. Just FYI, since I'm living there, I'll give them a little bit of a plug.
yes,
and that's
you said
the reason.
that.
One of the
I thought
reasons
that was cool.
I have it because it's accessible and affordable streaming service here, and great. I've really enjoyed that platform. It has really good content, very well curated, I would say, and has some different content like shorts and documentaries and short films, which is what WOACA is actually. And short films are often hard to find, so it's kind of good to have that option, even though they haven't shown WOACA in Turkey yet. But they may. It's probably going to come up eventually.
I hope so. I hope so. And I know that, well, we'll get to WOACA shortly. I just want to introduce these other films that Sidse Babett Knudsen did, just to give our audience, make them aware of what's going on. Also, if they see it around their platforms or at film festivals. And why we wanted to talk about these films that she's in is because the Toronto International Film Festival is coming up in a few weeks. And as listeners know, I live in Toronto, and last year I saw WOACA in the Toronto International Film Festival. So that's why I'm also plugging these films, because, you know, festival season is all year round. And if any of these come to a film festival near our listeners, then go ahead and check them out. So the next one, which will be more accessible because it's on Netflix, it's called Ehrengard, The Art of Seduction. That came out in 2023. It stars Sidse Babett Knudsen and Mikael Folsgaard, who plays Asger on Borgen Power and Glory. We all remember Asger for his excellent performance there.
Yeah.
So this is a Danish romantic comedy period drama written by Anders August and directed by his father, Billie August. It is based on the novel Ehrengard from 1963 by Isaac Dinesen. A quick and simple synopsis is, in the fictional kingdom of Babenhausen, an artist, Kazat, played by Mikael Folsgaard, is hired by the Grand Duchess, who's played by Sidse Babett Knudsen, to help her son, Prince Lothar, marry and produce an heir. And we'd also like to direct our audience to the Nordic Watch List and search for Ehrengard there, because our friends at the Nordic Watch List actually published two interviews about Ehrengard. One was done with Sidse Babett Knudsen, and one was with the actress Alice Beer Zanden and her breakout role in this film. So you can currently find Ehrengard, Art of Seduction on Netflix. Amy, I don't know if you had a chance to see that one yet.
I haven't. I just saw it listed today. In recent days, I've had some internet connectivity problems, actually, so I haven't been able to watch that film yet. Somebody's renovating an apartment in the bottom of my building, and I think that they might be switching things off and on occasionally. Yeah. So hopefully that won't happen while we're recording, but you won't know. We'll edit that.
We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Yeah. So
and those films sound really great. I'm the one with the teachers sounds
Club
interesting.
Zero.
Like that. Yeah, that sounds like a good, maybe there's a new thing I can try.
Yeah, because
Just
you're
kidding.
a teacher. For listeners that don't know, or new listeners that are joining us for the first time, Amy's a teacher.
Yeah, that's what I do in the real world.
But I would not never recording.
Yeah, I would never do anything to influence my students in a negative way. No way.
No way. But this one is a dark comedy thriller film. So I'm curious to see what it's like.
That sounds great.
Yes, and I just have a bit here about the Nordic Watch List. I had pulled it up on my screen here for people that don't know about the Nordic Watch List, but like Nordic films and TV shows. So the Nordic Watch List is a niche website dedicated to showcasing and reviewing an array of content from Nordic countries, encompassing films, TV shows, literature, along unique insights into Nordic travel and design. So it was conceived in 2020 and brought to life in 2021, kind of around the time of our podcast, Amy. I think we had sort of conceived it around that time. I forgot our release. Oops, it might have been January 2022. It was a COVID project.
Baby. Yeah, COVID baby, totally.
For people that don't know, Amy and I are very social people that we're used to being out and about and experiencing the beautiful cities that we live in. But in COVID, we had nothing to do, and we had watched Borgen and loved it, felt lonely that there was no one else to talk to about it. We had so much to say about it, so we decided to start this podcast.
Yep, that's how it happened.
That's how it happened, exactly. So, okay, so the next film I'm going to talk about is called Sons, SONS, 2024 from Denmark. It's known in Danish as Vogter, Vogter. Vogter is a psychological thriller co-written and directed by Gustav Moller. The film stars Sidse Babett Knudsen and Sebastian Bull, and it is about an idealistic prison officer, Eva Hansen, played by SBK, who faces the dilemma of her life when a young man she knows from before is transferred to her prison. Her life is turned upside down when the murderer of her son arrives at the prison. She secretly requests to work in his section, the most brutal and dangerous section. It becomes a disturbing psychological thriller where Eva's sense of fairness challenges her ethics and her destiny. Her growing feelings of revenge and her ideals collide. Dar Salim also plays in Vogter, or Sons in English, whom we all know as Amir from the Green Party in Borgen season 2.
Yep.
And Amy, you and I had talked about what a nice surprise it is when we're watching TV series or films when we see these Borgen actors pop up. You had talked
Totally.
about, I think, a series that the actor that plays Torben, Soren Malling, had starred in once. You had referenced it, and there's that classroom drama called Rita, Rita, which starred Philip's girlfriend in season 1, I think, of Borgen.
Yep.
So it's really, really cool. So Sons, aka Vogter, is a European co-production between Denmark and Sweden, and was selected in the competition at the 74th Berlin International Film Festival, where it competed for the Golden Bear, with its first screening on February 22nd, 2024 at the Berlinale Ballast. And Amy and I would like to thank our listener from Weddings with Love and extend warm greetings and a special hello and shout out to her. And she's a podcast listener of ours and sometimes writes to us with comedy. And she wrote to us to tell her about her experience attending this film in person. She said that Sidse Babett Knudsen did a press conference a few hours before the screening, but they were running late starting the film, and she had to catch the last train home. This is our listener, had to catch the last train home, so she couldn't stay when SBK and the staff, the cast, went up on stage afterwards. But she said it was a ton of fun and loved the experience.
That's awesome. And I love it's really nice when people interact with us. Like, we're not a huge podcast. We're not like super famous. We're not monetizing this. This isn't our real job. It's just something we do for fun. So just to meet other enthusiasts is always kind of nice. And that's really why we started this whole thing in the first place, was just to like have a little bit of fun and be a little bit out there and see what would happen. And we've met some cool people this way, and have had some great correspondence with people.
To bring a community together, right, of people that love the show as much as we do, but also to share experiences and sort of form a little community.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next film, which is the last film we'll talk about before we get to WOACA. So our listener, Muzamia from Australia, is the person that first told me about this film and brought it into my radar. So thank you, Muzamia, for your enthusiastic conversations with us, writing to us on Instagram. This film is called An Ordinary Case, aka Le Fil, and it's directed by Daniel Auteuil, which is about a man accused of murdering his wife. It also stars Daniel Auteuil, who not only directed it, he's also starring in it. The film has had its world premiere in the special screening section at the 77th Cannes Film Festival on May 21st, 2024. I don't have a lot of information about this film. It just came out in May of 2024. And so, like I said, I'm hoping the newer ones, like An Ordinary Case and Sons, which also came out in 2024, will make it to the Toronto International Film Festival. And if it does, I will go, and Amy and I could do a little bonus episode recap about it in the future. So
yes, cool,
yes,
very cool. We had the Istanbul Film Festival takes place in the springtime too. I don't believe any Sidse Babett Knudsen films came, but one that did was another that's gotten a lot of attention, and like Wim Wenders actually directed it. It's called Perfect Days, and he came with the Japanese star of that film, and they were here, but I couldn't go. I didn't even know they were coming until it was too late, because that's like the end of the school year-ish time for me. And so like my life was totally
Yeah, you're
chaotic.
not focused on reading about
Yeah.
what's, yeah.
Yeah, and I missed the chance to buy tickets. And by the time I found out about it and tried to buy tickets, it was already sold out. But I think it sold out probably in like 5 minutes. It was one of those situations, you know?
Oh yeah, no, you've got to keep your eye on it. So right now I have the date on my calendar when the tickets will be released.
Yeah.
I am ready to go online and look up my favorite stars, see what's going on, favorite directors. There is a film coming here, a French film called, oh my gosh, I don't even remember the title. But anyways, for people who like Call My Agent, Amy, I know you and I love
Yep.
that series. To me, that's one of my favorite
Yep.
series I've seen from France. The actress Ophelia Kolb, Kolb, who
Yep.
plays Andrea's girlfriend. What's her name? Oh my gosh, I'm a big fan
Oh,
of
I
her.
can't remember. Yeah, but I remember. Yeah.
Colette.
Yes, Colette. Yeah.
So she has a film
Of
that
course it's Colette.
she
Oh,
has
mon
a
Dieu.
film that she's starring in that's going to be it's already confirmed to be in the TIFF. And she's going to be here for it. So I am definitely going to go see it and show my support and see what that film is about. So yeah, it's an exciting time. And I'm really lucky to live near the TIFF. So I'm
Yeah.
about a 30-minute subway ride from my door to the TIFF store, which of course they
Perfect.
take up a lot of venues in the downtown Toronto. And it's a very exciting time. And I know last year I posted because I went to this film, WOACA. Starring Sidse Babett Knudsen, directed by Mackenzie Davis. WOACA stands for Women of a Certain Age. So let's get into this review now, Amy. So
Sure.
it's a 14-minute short film starring Sidse Babett Knudsen, directed by Mackenzie Davis. We'll talk about Mackenzie Davis in a second. This short film, has no dialogue. She is the only actor to play in it, and it takes place in one room, which is her bathroom.
Yep.
So after I saw this short film, we wrote an article for the Nordic Watch List. So if you go to the Nordic Watch List website and you search for WOACA, WOACA, then you'll be able to find our article. And we also have another article published there for when Borgen Power and Glory came out in June 2022. It was released the day before Borgen Power and Glory came out. So
Yes.
so let's talk about what this film is about. So this film is about the feelings and the pressure that many of us women feel who are of a certain age, and both Amy and I are over 40 now.
Mhm.
I'm 45. Amy is around that age group.
Yeah, I'm
And
48. I have no shame. I'm 48. I'll be 49 in a couple of months. That's
yes,
interesting. By the way, if my mic is picking up some funny sounds, I'm using a fan, like a handheld drag queen type fan, because it's really hot in here and I'm sweating. And you know, I am a woman of a certain age, so it's hotter for me. And my cat is behind my computer doing funny things. So she keeps like moving around. So if you hear some rattling or scratches, it's me and her. Excuse us.
no problem. No problem at all. So let's talk about Mackenzie Davis for a second. So
Yes.
this short film was written and directed by her. Amy, she's a fellow Canadian, and she's also
Yes.
a fellow British Columbia person,
Yes.
like
That's
you.
me.
That's
Yep.
you. So she's from your province here in Canada. And it premiered at the 2023 TIFF. Prior to this, Davis worked as an actor in theater, film, and television. She worked on the San Junipero episode of the Netflix anthology series Black Mirror, which received 2 Emmy Awards. Black
Right.
Mirror is an excellent series to anybody that doesn't know it, and you like to be thrilled and in suspense and thinking. I highly recommend it a
Yep.
lot. I love it.
Same. I've even used clips of that in my classes sometimes.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like sci-fi, futuristic, but also
Yeah.
has this excellent lesson of how technology can ruin us.
Yeah, it's kind of future dystopian. It's very interesting. And every episode is different.
Completely
So
different.
it's yeah. Yeah, you can watch them in any order. It doesn't really matter. It's really quite fascinating. And it addresses things like, you know, social media and like appearance, how one looks to others. It's quite interesting, which relates to the themes in this short film we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So this episode that Mackenzie Davis was in Black Mirror received 2 Emmy Awards. She was also in Blade Runner, 2049, Terminator, Dark Fate. And then she was in the 2020 holiday rom-com Happiest Season, to which she co-starred alongside Kristen Stewart, just to name a few pieces of her work. And this was her directorial debut, which screened in the Short Cuts program at the TIFF. So yeah, like we were saying, in a world where women are taught from a young age that youth and beauty are our greatest currency, which is not true. It was quite comical to see this short. This was also a non-verbal role for Sidse Babett Knudsen. So basically the whole time we're in her bathroom, she is standing in front of the mirror and she's intently staring at her face, and she's proceeding to apply a lot of various anti-aging creams and serums and mists to her face. And with each application, she immediately stands back and holds her hands up with palms up as if in prayer, and carefully analyzes her face as the minutes go by after the application of the cream or the serum to see if any changes have been made of these anti-aging products, right? And so we get to see that this is her daily skincare routine, and she's keen to halt and reverse the aging she's noticing on her skin. And this is, for the audience, this is a satirical piece. So as the minutes pass, the treatments become more and more intense, including turning this film into more of a horror short, when she notices extreme changes happening to her face and she goes full rogue and finally surrenders. So, it's certainly an experience that I would say all of us women go through.
Yep.
Especially in media, right? And in advertising and in commercials, to be younger and younger and younger.
Yeah, I'm grateful that like certain actresses like SBK, like Helen Mirren, like Kate Winslet, like Gillian Anderson, and others, and Emma Thompson have like all recently been, and like Andie MacDowell, walking on red carpets with her gray hair out. The horror, and
the shame.
I'm so grateful that some of these actresses have just started to say, like, you know what, we're human beings and we age, and that's just the way it is. Deal with it. And that there seems to be more roles available.Maybe this is a misperception on my part, or maybe it's what I'm looking for now, because I'm also pushing 50. So it's like, I don't, as much as I love my students and I'm interested in what younger people do and think and experience and how they navigate the world, and that helps keep me on track with, like, things that are happening in youth culture, which drive forward the culture in general, really. Like for new things, or like the way people use social media changes because of the kids, the kids these days.
Yeah.
But as much as I like youth culture and I'm invested in it because I'm around it, I also appreciate the fact that I don't have to be there anymore. It's easier to be older because you have less concern about what others think of you.
Yeah.
At least that's been my experience. And I'm like very interested in what quote unquote older women have to say now, because I'm going to be one.
Yeah. So, and, we talk about this, especially and we're going to get to recording about some other Borgen episodes in this recording session we have. So listeners, watch out for those episodes to come. We talk about the beauty that a character like Han has, who is a very attractive woman, in my opinion. But what makes her beautiful is that, well, I think she's aesthetically good looking, but underneath that, she has this intrinsic beauty and wisdom that only comes with age. And I will argue, as I was preparing for these next episodes we're going to record about 7 and 8, coming up, Borgen season, we're on season 3, 7 and 8. I know it's been a while, so that's where we left off from the last set of recordings about the episodes. I said to myself, as I was making my notes, that I will argue that Han is even sexier than Brigitte. And the reason is Han has years of experience over Brigitte. I know in the show, Brigitte, is supposed to be about 40, 41, 42, 43, something around there. But Hannah's probably about 20 years older than her. And just the attention that she commands when she walks in a room, and you've said this over and over, Amy, like she knows her stuff. We trust Hen. She's a warrior out there on the floor in the studio, you know, when she's going to tell a story, reporting whatever she's reporting.
Yeah, and she gives zero fucks what other people have to say about her and her age and her appearance and stuff. And she will clap back to younger people who deserve to be clapped back.
But to me, that's extremely attractive, not to be persuaded by, oh my God, is my skirt the right length? And, you know, did that aging serum work on me? And, oh, how's my new haircut look today? And, you know, did I style it okay? Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I agree with you. Like, even at my age, especially in, you know, shows I watch on streaming services, or, you know, I'm an avid goer of film festivals, I find myself having to look harder for roles where women are starring in. And it's a shame, because women's stories are very important. They're vital to the culture and fabric, and we learn so much about it. And I see Amy's cat coming into the frame.
Yeah, I'm trying to distract her. She was starting to chew my cords. So now she's gone. It's good. Okay.
All right. I don't have to be left alone to record this episode. Great.
Yes. No.
So just a couple woman-centric TV series that I can think of off the top of my head. And Amy, if you have some, or films that you want to reference, jump on in. But like, there was an excellent series starring Michelle Pfeiffer, Gillian Anderson, and Viola Davis, called First Ladies, about the first ladies of some of the American presidents. So Roosevelt, Ford, and Obama. That was excellent. Killing Eve is another very favorite series of mine that is led by 3 female actors. So Fiona Shaw, Sandra Oh, and Jodie Comer, who star in this extremely sexy thriller called Killing Eve, if people haven't seen it. Is there anything you think of?
Killing Eve is one that definitely came to mind, and a shout out to Sandra Oh for also being Canadian.
That's right. And I think is she from Vancouver, or is she from British Columbia?
I think she might be from Ontario, but I'm not sure.
Oh, actually, I think she's from Nepean, so just outside of Ottawa.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's right. And yeah, she's really cool. And if you want to hear a long form interview with her, go check out Mark Maron's podcast, WTF. That's a real one, like a famous one, not like an amateur one like ours. And he does these great long form interviews with different people, and it's really, really in depth and really good. And yeah, I really enjoy that podcast. So I would check that out if you're interested. And there are many, many interviews. So some of the actors that we're talking about may be there too. You'll have to search it up.
Exactly. So you talked about Kate Winslet. I think she did WTF, right?
Yes, she definitely did. And that was a really good interview, because she really opened up. It was great.
I am going to listen to it, because I was looking up Mark Maron's WTF. And I also saw that he did a interview with Jodie Foster. And this is my chance to plug True Detective. It's called Northern Country, I think it's called.
Yes.
Anyways, sorry.
The newest season?
Yeah, the newest season.
Yeah.
So I've never watched True Detective before. It was Jodie Foster that drew me to it. And just quickly to digress there, that season was about, it was woman forward. So it was Jodie Foster co-starring with Kaylee Reese, who is a woman of color. Yep. She's also an Indigenous woman. She's a young actor. She actually has no real acting experience. She did very small roles before. This is her first major acting job. She's also a 4-time boxing champion, world champion or something. She's got this awesome like background. So when the two of them were paired up, and it's the series is done by, oh my God, I didn't plan to talk about this, so I didn't prepare for it. But anyways, the director and writer of this season is a Latina woman.
Oh, cool.
And I will have to get her name because I forgot it. Anyways, she paired them up together, and Foster, I read an interview where Foster said she wanted to make the story more forward on the Indigenous woman side, and focus on those stories more. And she wanted her character to be aged up, Jodie Foster.
Oh, cool.
because at the time Foster was in her late 50s and she didn't
Yep.
want to be playing someone who's younger, right?
Yes.
So that's another
Yeah.
badass move by a very powerful woman, right?
Yeah. Speaking of Jodie Foster, a film with her and Annette Bening, I think, is called Naiad, about
Yes.
the swimmer Diane Naiad, who swam. This is a real thing that she did. She swam from Cuba to Florida, and she's the only woman at the. I mean, she tried it. She attempted it in the 70s, I think, and then did it again in the 90s. I think that's the timeline. I could be wrong. It was something like that. And she accomplished this after a few failed attempts. And like the intensity, the training, the athleticism, and like, oh, and she's not just like the first woman swimmer to do it. She's the first swimmer to do it. Like a man hasn't done that. Okay. So that's kind of nice. That and you know, speaking of long distance sports, women tend to do much better in like longer endurance sports than men do, like super long distance runs, like longer than marathons and stuff. It's really quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the science is behind that, but it's a thing, which is kind of interesting. And I'm trying to think of other female-led series and films that I've seen recently that I really liked, but I just watched last night. I just watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, which is directed by the French director whose name also I forgot because I'm ridiculous.
So if you want to look that up, I found the creator or writer director of this True Detective. It's called Night County. Okay. And it's done by Issa Lopez. And I also read that Issa Lopez is coming back for the next season of True Detective, which I'm not sure was done before, where they got the same person to come back and do it in subsequent seasons. So, you know, that's awesome.
Yes.
Really, really
cool. The director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire is Céline Sciamma, I guess that's how you pronounce it, and stars Naomi Merlan and Adele Hanel. And Adele Hanel quit acting and is doing other things now because she says the film industry is rife with predatory behavior and sexism, racism, and pandering to capitalist notions. And that caused her to like decide to kind of retire early. And this was the last film she did. And she was in a relationship with Céline Sciamma, actually. For a number of years, they worked together on a few different projects. And I love this director. Her films are fantastic. The other film of hers that I watched that's completely different, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, is set in the late 18th century on an island in Brittany, where a female portrait painter is assigned to come and do the portrait of this young aristocrat, played by Hanel there. They develop a relationship, an intimate relationship. And it's really quite interesting. The dynamics are so good. And they also kind of have a third party friend in Sophie, the girl who works in the house, woman who works in the house, just young woman who works in the house as the kind of servant. And the mother character is also interesting. We find out some interesting things about her life. There's one man in that film. He's the guy who delivers stuff to the beach and picks stuff up at the end of the film to take people on boats. And I think he says bonjour, and that's it. Which is kind of refreshing because you don't often see that. And it's a really, really intense film. And then the other film of hers that I really loved was Petite Maman, which is about a woman who meets her younger self. There's like a time travel kind of aspect.
That's very cool.
It's really interesting and it's really touching. Like I just loved it. And it's this very young female actor, like a child actor, is starring in it, and her performances I think it's twins actually, and they're so wonderful. It's so touching. There's one of my favorite scene in that film is when they're in the kitchen making pancakes or crepes together, and they're like spilling stuff and giggling and making a big mess, and it reminded me of my own childhood. Like I can't state how much I love this director's work. She's so fabulous.
Can you
She's
say the
absolutely
title of
wonderful.
that second one again?
Petite Maman.
Petite
It's
Maman.
a
Okay.
little mother, and I don't know the English title. I just know the French one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
if anyone wants to check, you can just you know, look up Portrait of a Lady on Fire. You'll find the director, and you can go from there. It's
Yeah.
very easy to check.
Yes.
And yeah, can't recommend these films enough. Like, they're both fabulous, and I love them.
Yes,
Absolutely
I
love
actually
them.
saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the Inside Out, which is the LGBTQ film
Yes.
festival here in Toronto. When the festival is not on, it's usually on at the end of May. Throughout the year, they have screenings to, engage their audience members and, to bring people together. And they actually featured a Portrait of a Lady on Fire at the end of February 2020. And I remember going there with a couple friends of mine, and I'm like, I wasn't even clued into, what's going on, what's going to happen in a couple of weeks, the pandemic and the lockdown.
No, I
So
know.
imagine I saw that film on the big screen and how gorgeous the cinematography was.
Yeah,
You talk about what a great director Scamma is, right?
Yeah.
I was
The colors.
use
The
of colors,
color.
the sound of the ocean, right?
Yes.
And those scenes on the beach were breathtaking and stunning.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the sound, like, even the sound of
the waves on the ocean.
Yes, and the fires in the fireplace, the snapping of the wood and the sparks, and the creak of the floors in the house, the sound of the pencils and charcoal against the canvas.
Right.
Everything is just perfect.
Yeah.
I love. She's just brilliant. Brilliant. One of my favorites.
That's great. I definitely, well, I've seen Portrait of a Lady on Fire, so I definitely want to check out Petite Maman. So that sounds really good. So going back to WOACA here, which is all very topical because this is a very done by a woman, Mackenzie Davis, starring a woman, Sidse Babett Knudsen, about women trying to have to preserve their youth and beauty. We're told and led to believe that this is our biggest currency, and we know that that's not true.
Not true.
So I would say what was very funny, sort of an inside look into how I, went to this film and was taking notes. Normally, I'm at my desk here in my place, and I prepare for, our episodes on the computer or in a notebook. This episode we're recording today, I've scribbled things down old school style in a notebook. But when I was watching WOACA, I didn't have a notebook. I was in a dark theater. So I was actually scribbling notes on the back of my hand of things that I wanted to say. And Amy, I remember getting out of the screening and I was walking because, King Street West, this is at King and John where I was. It's a crazy place. It's, the streets are closed down. It's the TIFF. There's red carpet stuff going on. There's interviews, pop-up interviews, press. So I had to famous people. I had to walk out of that area. I was walking like University Avenue, getting up to Dundas, trying to get far away. And I was on the phone with you on a WhatsApp recording, telling you, because I didn't want to lose.
Right, that's right.
Because I don't have notes. I can't make notes. I can't go on my phone. I'm in a dark theater. And by the way, audience listeners, I can't tell you how thrilling it was to see Sidse Babett Knudsen on the big screen. I have never seen her on the big screen before because, as you know, I'm in Canada, and up close, and because it's her face, and her face there was no makeup on it because she was putting these serums on, right? You can't put serums with makeup on. So anyways, just a couple of things. I gasped out loud a couple of times and I had my hand over my mouth as I was witnessing some of the horror that was taking place. So it was part horror, part comedy. And as we know, Sidse Babett Knudsen started out in comedy in Denmark before going into Borgen, which is more of a serious role. I mean, it has hints of comedy here and there, but it's definitely not a comedy.
Dramatic series,
So this was very funny because in the beginning, she was very serious and composed and concentrating in the mirror with trying to hope that she would see some changes. But in the end, she's gone wild, and I will allude to what she goes wild with because there are photos of it online, and I don't know how many people are actually going to see this unless you see it in a film festival.
Yeah.
or it gets released somewhere. It was on Vimeo, Vimeo. It's a more artistic platform for video. One of our viewers actually pointed that out to me. And so I went to watch it quickly a few weeks before today, just to refresh myself. But she gets a zit on her face and it becomes bigger
Yeah.
and bigger. And
Yeah,
then
like
she's
a
got
boil.
yeah, and then it gets popped and the whole bathroom becomes this like pus fest bath that she's in, and it's just
Oh,
really
yeah.
comical and funny. That's why I had to cover my mouth. And the
Yeah.
people in the audience, I don't know if they all knew who she was from Borgen, but they certainly were engaged. They were gasping and they were cringing at some moments. So that brings me to a message that one of our Instagram followers left for us. Her name is Nika. She says she had seen the film as well in a festival. She said that it was shot in Twickenham in the UK in December 2022. The what is pus, what we see as pus, because this
Yeah.
big zit on her face pops. She says what Sidse Babett Knudsen's character is sliding through uh is like, it's very thick, viscous substance that appears in the
Yeah.
bathroom. It's all made of strawberry coulis and custard.
Ew.
So it was really, really interesting and funny. And I don't think anybody knew where that was going, including myself. That was part of
Yeah,
the horror
yeah.
of it, right? To see how
Yeah.
this silent, composed woman, and again, there's no dialogue in this at all.
Yeah. No
So
speaking. That's so cool. And
exactly.
it's a testament to how good of an actor she is too, because like on camera, if you can't do things with your face to convey what your character is going through, you're a bust as a film actor. Like if you have a wooden face, you can't act, so you have to like learn how to show things through your facial expressions. And it's really interesting how good she is at that. And good actors are good at that. Like you can see this.
Yeah, in their
Um,
face, in their eyes.
yeah, like in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, it's all about there because things aren't really, I mean, they talk, the characters speak, there's talking, but it's, late 17th century France, there, you had to be careful, right?
I don't
And
remember a lot of dialogue in that film, actually. The characters were
there
kind of
is,
subdued, if I
yeah,
remember.
it's fairly subdued, and the dialogue is somewhat superficial, but things are said that have a lot of meaning behind them, and then that's conveyed with facial expressions. And of course, it's about painting a portrait, which means the painter is observing the subject, and at the same time, the subject is observing the painter. And that's the other half of the exchange and like the fire in this film, and it's really, really great.
So I have another female-led film to tell you, but let me finish up with WOACA and just say I have a quick one-line review. This was on Letterboxd because, in preparing for this episode, we were searching a lot for, are there clips, is there content? There is a trailer for it on YouTube. If you search WOACA or Sidse Babett Knudsen, you'll see it. One person named Neon Yellow Green on Letterboxd says, quote, "It was so gross, I covered my eyes, and then I tried to watch it again because I loved it, but then I gagged so hard, I had to cover my eyes again out of embarrassment for gagging beside two strangers." And that I speaks to the horror of it, right? It was so funny. But yeah, I think that's all I want to say about WOACA, but I'll come back and talk about strong female women, and maybe it's time for us to wrap this one up because I know we want to record another episode together. The woman that plays in Portrait of a Lady, the dark-haired actress Naomi Merlant is her name?
Yes.
I think is her name. Anyways, talking about strong female, she was in Tar with Kate Blanchett. And let's talk about that. And I think that's a good place to end it on our conversation about how Kate Blanchett really took up a lot of I guess like so much was going on in Tar, right? So we have this female conductor. We don't see a lot of female conductors. She's in this position of power. She has a partner who's a woman who's also in the orchestra. And she's
Yeah.
like one of the, key people in the orchestra. So we have two
Yeah.
powerful women starring in this.
First cellist or something, I think.
Something like that. And she's played by German actor Nina Haas, who is excellent. I've seen her in other things, including she was in a film in The Inside Out that I just watched a couple months ago. A French film, actually. It was a French/German film. And it was all about Lydia Tarr, played by Kate Blanchett's, her career as a woman in this industry, but also how she was sort of a perpetrator of the Me Too movement, which we don't see a lot of women using their power, being predatory, the way we've seen other examples of men being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting. She's an agent of her own downfall because she believes, because of her elevated position and her, fame within the tiny world of symphony orchestras, because let's face it, it's a very small world. Classical music is small and it's very hard to break into. I have close people to me who were music performers, and never got a shot at doing orchestra because it's too tight of a world. So if you're not a superstar, it's very hard to work as an orchestral player. So it's a small world, and she believes her own power and kind of, in a lot of ways, acts in a very masculine type of way, with the way she wields that power, and just kind of uses it in inappropriate ways, and which pushes boundaries to the point where it leads to her own downfall. It's a really fascinating study, actually. It's really quite interesting.
It is quite interesting. Yeah.
There's a question, there's questions in the reader's mind at the end of what's imaginary, what's not imaginary. Is this a mental break for the character? Is this reality for the character? There's some question marks there.
Actually, you and I had some robust conversations about it, because I think your point to me was, and I didn't see this point that you were I had to look carefully, right? Because I'd only seen it once, but you made a really good point about how, there was some imagery in it. There was something about her seeing a wolf or something, or she had seen some animal
dog.
or a dog.
Yeah. And who's the dog? What's the dog? What's it symbolize?
What's the message?
It has symbolic meaning. So it's her own ego following her, I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Or trying to give her a reality check, because at the end of it, I'm not going to spoil the film for people that want to see it, and people should see it because it is excellent. We see that it's there's so much that she hides, right? And even with her identity, which some of it is made up. Yeah. Because at the end we see her as vulnerable and quite different, even with another name. Her name was not Lydia Tarr, it was something else.
That's right.
It's a good example of two powerful women who are over 50 for sure, leading this story in a same-sex relationship, also in this powerful position of, as you say, this industry where it's not very male dominated, and how she uses her power in a not so nice way.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're also seeing women like that.
Yeah. And I kind of enjoy that. I like seeing if we're going to diversify roles for women, then let's see women as villains too. Right.
Exactly. Not just the mothers, the grandmothers, the nurturers, the nice people, because we know that there's women like that. We know that there's women that take advantage of other women. Right.
Yeah. And who pick on them and bully them and are, and will denigrate others to
their advantage, or if these younger women don't do what the older woman says, then she has the power to present a roadblock to this younger woman's career, and that's what ends up happening, right?
Yes,
and it's very complicated, correct. And then it's well, how do you articulate that my career was stunted because I didn't say yes to my female mentor? Right.
Yeah,
but people believe that, it reminds me of that film Disclosure with Demi Moore and Michael Douglas that came out probably in the 90s of, she was sexually harassing him. So it's important to see all stories. It's also important not to stereotype. Amy and I love to use #NotAllMen. It's true #NotAllMen. We don't want to see stories that portray men as these sexual predators, because not all men are like that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. No, they're
They're
definitely not.
not. They're not. We
And
know excellent men in our lives.
yes, I have many guy friends, actually, many, many, many,
Hmm.
who are lovely people and support me no matter what. And I always appreciate that. And I do the same for them. And they know who they are. So yeah, it's important that we don't just throw people into stereotype categories all the time. But the trouble is, of course, like in the media landscape as it is now, with certain misogynist content creators coming to the forefront, it's definitely something that's not going away, and it seems to like come and go in waves. We make advancements, women that is, make advancements, there seems to be more tolerance, more acceptance, more understanding, more feminist ideology leaking into the culture at large, and then there's of course a massive backlash. And this happened in the 90s. I mean, like there's a book called Backlash about this very topic, and which I shouldn't maybe quote because I haven't read it, or if I did, it's like so many years ago I can't remember it. Um, but there always seems to be this like forward, back, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing, and I think we're in a step back. But let's see, things could shift again. Let's
Hmm.
see what happens in the coming, especially with the US election. If Kamala Harris makes it as president, that will change the global landscape, because let's face it, as much as like we're not American, most people in the world are in fact not American, but you would not know that from the content of the internet. It seems to be that Americans make up a lot of internet stuff, at least in English language content is largely generated in America. So we see a lot of, and maybe this is partly being neighbors to them as Canadians,
Hmm.
we see shifts in American culture affect culture globally as well, obviously.
Yeah.
So if that happens, things could be quite different. We'll see.
We'll see. And actually, that's a good point for us to end on right now, because Amy and I are going to be recording a couple more episodes, which we will release them in a staggered manner, like we normally
Yep.
do. We both have some things coming up, which will prevent us from doing a lot of recordings, but
Yeah.
we are recording today and we will be releasing these episodes every month, every couple of months. And yeah, the elections are going to happen in November. And that's a good point for us to leave this on, because the next episodes we're going to be recording on are about the elections in Borgen.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
We are on season 3. Next, we'll be recording about 7 and 8. So with that, Amy, if there's nothing else you want to add, I'll take us out.
Sure. There's one thing I want to add about WOACA, and
Sure.
like the idea of a woman staring into a mirror, wondering what happened to her face, is something very relatable. It's a very relatable. It's something that I'm going through right now, because like looking at old pictures of myself, seeing, this idea that like as women become more middle-aged, they become more invisible in public. Like
Mm-hmm.
people, and that means, what that means, dudes don't check you out as much. That's what that means. It doesn't mean women your own age don't look at you and exchange looks with you, or
Mm-hmm.
other women don't look at you. Women look at each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means, invisibility, it means like men don't notice you because you're not 22 years old, super thin and hot and wearing like a crop top and like short shorts. If I did that, people would stare, but not for the same reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
And I've just noticed like this shift in the way I'm perceived by others. And by noticing that, trying to abate the onslaught of doubt that comes when you start to see yourself as like, oh, I'm not what I once was. And that's not actually a bad thing. That can be a wonderful thing. It's like, okay, I don't look like I did when I was 28. But why is that a problem? I look like I
Why
do
is it a
now.
problem? But also, if a woman is trying to get the attention of a man, that's the wrong kind of attention to get,
Yeah,
right? So
it
if
is.
you're walking, if someone a young woman is walking around in a tank top and like high shorts, who are the men that are going to be hitting on her in a gross way? Those are not the men
Yeah.
that anyone wants to be dating, right?
Yeah. And some of those men, I mean, some of the men who are going to look at that girl are going to be near her age. Okay, that's totally fine, or age appropriate brackets. But like when a guy my age looks at a girl who's 20 and is like, oh, I could hit that. It's like, dude, no. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
50-year-old and a
disgusting.
20-year-old. Come on. I mean, it happens. I know this happens. I know a few people who've been in very successful, very loving, very mutually respectful relationships where the age gap was really large, like 20 years or more. And it can work from time to time. It does work from time to time. But not everybody's like that. And, you know, why would a hot 22-year-old be looking at a clapped out 50-year-old dude who maybe doesn't take care of himself? Like, think about that. It's ridiculous.
Well,
And then
it might be for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, or well, and then, you know, then people say also the like, you know, oh, they're just looking for money. And it's like, you know what? Most women have their own money now. So I don't think that that's really necessarily the case. And if it is, more power to them then. If that's the trade-off and you want you want to be in a transactional relationship, go ahead and be in a transactional relationship, but just admit that's what you're doing.
Mhm.
All of this goes back to one very important point: choice and consent. And
Yep.
we should all have the choice and consent to make decisions in our relationships, to see them how we want to see them and be accepted for who we are, whether that's somebody who's, you know, cis het presenting and heteronormative, somebody who's LGBTQ and non-cis presenting, you know,
Or non-binary, yeah.
non-binary. All of the possibilities should be wide open by now. It's 2024. I think this whole concept of gender is kind of nonsensical in a lot of ways. At least, you know, I also don't believe that, like, you know, you can say your gender is a table or something. I think that's taking it too far. But if you're like realistic about who you're interested, it should just be about two people who are interested in each other. Who cares about the rest of it? And if it's not you, if you're not one of the people involved in the relationship, it's none of your business.
Exactly.
So, you know, move along. If you don't like what you see, move along.
Yeah, exactly. But Amy, not everyone is as smart as we are.
That's true. That's true. Or is accepting, you know.
Yes,
like,
and open. Yeah.
yeah. It's ridiculous. Oh my God. One more point, and then we can wrap this up.
One more point. Go ahead.
It's very quick. I went to Topkapi Palace, which is like the Ottoman palace, one of the biggest palaces in Istanbul. There's two here. And in the pavilion, in the room, the building with, there's a display of all the 15th and 16th century clothing, beautiful silk caftans, immaculate, beautiful, beautifully preserved. Like, Suleiman the Magnificent's clothing, who was the Sultan in the 1500s. Okay, so this is very, very old stuff. And these caftans are like, you know, the classic kind of like dress shape. They're bell shaped, but must have been very comfortable. And like some are fur lined, immaculate, beautiful. Oh, amazing designs. And I heard some lunkhead say, where are the guys' clothes? And I was like, you absolute rube. Like, that Sultan would have chopped that kid's head off. But I mean, like how stupid do you have to be to judge a foreign culture? Because he said that loudly in an American accent, North American accent, in English, loudly, so everyone around could hear, you know, just how masculine he was. And it's another culture, it's another time period. It's like 500 years ago. It's like, dude, things were different back in the day. Have you seen what the Brits were wearing in the 1500s or the Italians? Come on. Clothing was much fancier for men back then. Yeah. And like to just assume, like to just say something is feminine because it's not like the 19th century and beyond model of pants and a jacket is absurd. So all of these kinds of rules just, I think, need to be thrown out, frankly.
Exactly. I agree with you totally. And we've said that in between many of our episodes about how ridiculous the constructs of gender are and clothing, and, you know, people that are non-binary, they could wear whatever you want. Anyone could wear whatever we want.
Yes.
So,
And I think that's fabulous. And I think everybody should be comfortable expressing who they are exactly how they want to. And I don't see why that's a problem. But some people get really bent out of shape if you don't fit their idea of what they think you should look like. And it's just ridiculous.
totally.
And that's that. So now we can wrap it up.
Now we're going to wrap it up, and we are going to come back on to record more content, which listeners will come out in the next month or two. So hang on and keep subscribing and following to us. So we'd like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us, and the new people that have discovered us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Borgen Podcast. And thank you to our good friend Garth Jensen for providing our intro and outro music. Thank you very much, Garth. And please check out Garth's YouTube channel if you all like pop culture. It's called Garth's Pop Culture O. You can check us out on our website, theborgenpodcast.com, to learn more about us and the show. And lastly, don't forget to check out our social media platforms. We are there and we'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app so you know when new episodes are released, and new episodes are coming.
Yes, they are.
Please also connect with us and continue sharing what's on your mind. We love to hear from you. Amy and I like reading your messages. You could also use the hashtag. You could write to us directly or use the hashtag The Borgen Podcast, or you could send us an email to theborgenpodcast@gmail.com.